Welcome to the West Milford Museum. It's very interesting to mention that this organization is 100% run by volunteers of the Heritage Committee. We are not employees of this township. We get some financial help for certain things, but everything is done here or by donations or volunteer work, and volunteers like Kristen, like Dan, like Nathan, myself, and Tom. We all do this because we love history and we try to keep it and maintain it. That's one of the main reasons that we do it, so that future generations, like my good friend there sitting, that in the future he also gets interested in history, because history is not only, as I always say it to the fourth graders when they visit us, is not learning and memorizing names and dates. History is know what is behind what happened. And then later on, the names and dates, they come automatically. You don't have really to memorize them. Today, I will not be giving a total description of who Hasenclever was. I will explain why later on in my conversation. And it was mainly to tell you about all the research I did about him, and that I continue still today doing my research. The painting that you see here, it's a painting that casually I found it in the internet in a little museum in Germany. It's a watercolor painted last century of a Hochofen that is a blast furnace. Most probably, and probably our blast furnace at Longpond or at Charlottesburg was very similar to this one. My research on Peter Hasenclever and the American Iron Company. Who was Peter Hasenclever? I'm not going to read myself everything, just going to take a little bit about everything. He was very young. He started traveling for his father in business. His father was in the iron and steel industry, and he learned not only by teaching from his father, working as an apprentice, shifts of 12 hours in the factories, trying to learn how iron and steel is worked. He also went to Lenep, a little town close where he was born, to learn about linen, because his grandfather, mother's side, was in the linen industry. While working in Lisbon, Portugal, and in Cadiz, Spain, he was able to talk to all the sailors and captains that came from America, from New Spain, from Colombia, from Argentina, and he noticed that there was a lot of opportunities in the New World. And he discovered that England was running out of charcoal, running out of wood to make charcoal, and they were buying from Sweden, from Russia, iron and steel. He says, why don't the hell we produce it then in America? They can. But at that time, many industries were forbidden for colonists to do it, because England wanted to be exporting everything to the colonies. So he came together with some partners in England. He already had married an English lady, and he got the permission from the King, George III, to establish ironworks in America. He arrived in June of 1764, arrived in New York City, and immediately bought the Ringwood iron furnace that they had, a little one there, close to Ringwood Manor. He established also the one at Charlottesburg, that at that time was in German, Charlottenburg, Route 23 and Echo Lake, and also a little other furnace in New York, in Cortland. He also established some works in the Mohawk River by the German Flats, where he was producing hemp, flax, and madder, and in addition, potash for making soap. He and his partners run into economic problems, and he said one day, I quit, I go back to England, and started fighting because he was being sued by the partners. Before his problems were solved in the courts, he retired to Silesia, Schlesien in Germany, what is today Kamienna Góra, Poland, in the city of Landeshut, and went into the linen industry. And he had a lot of correspondence with the King Frederick from Prussia, trying to establish a better linen industry to compete against the Spaniards and the French that had excellent linen, and also started establishing communications with Benjamin Franklin. There are some letters I got recently, I found one in the internet, that he wanted to establish more business with America after the Revolution. He was always in favor of the Revolution, and in many of his letters and interviews in England, he was discussing with the ministers in England, you are going to lose the colonies if you continue the way you are handling the colonies. At the end, he was right. He was born in a city in Ruhrgebiet. That's a typical area where iron and steel is produced in Germany. For sure, many of you have heard the name Solingen. Solingen was a very famous trademark for knives and scissors made of very good steel, very close where he was born. And he died later on in Landeshut in Poland. These are two postcards that I found during my research. Around Europe and America. As I mentioned to you, he was living for several years in Remscheid. Then he moved to Aachen, close by, to establish some business producing and selling needles, steel needles. Then he went to England, where they went a portion of time in England, and then in Lisbon and Cadiz. In Lisbon, he met his wife, got married there. She was the daughter of a royal ship captain, and his daughter, Maria Elizabeth, was also born there. Then he was in Cadiz for many years, and that's where he started then looking opportunities to go to America. He had here in New York and New Jersey enterprises. Here close to us is Long Pond, Charlottesburg, Cortland on the other side of the Hudson, just crossing over to New York, and also at the German Flats. This is a little more detail where the locations are. Long Pond, Ringwood, he bought Ringwood, Charlottenburg, Cortland, and the German Flats. The German Flats inclusive, he is well known there, and a hill was named in his honor, the Hasenclever Hill. Why did I start it with Hasenclever, and how did I came to the idea to research him? When I came back from Brazil on an overseas assignment, I became a member of the Long Pond Iron Works. And I started going and talking to the people at Ringwood, especially with the curator there, Albertus Bert Prol, who was the curator, and trying to learn more about making iron. And Bert one day approached me, Hans, do you have only a German name, or do you speak German? He says, I speak German. When as I mentioned to you, I was born in Mexico. My father was German, and I attended into the middle school in Mexico, the German school. And we came out of middle school speaking Spanish, English, and German. So yes, I said, I speak German. It's not my first language, but I believe I speak. Says, I would like you to invite you. Shall we translate the biography? Says, what biography? Oh, the one that was written about Per Hasenclever, the founder of Longbourn Ironworks. And he showed me a photocopy of a book that was at the the Cornell University Library. Later on, I was able to find an original one in Germany in a librarian. So I have it. So I started reading it and going through. The problem is it's written in Old German. In addition to the Old German, it's the German structure of the phrases are completely different to ours. They used to use long, long sentences, a whole paragraph sometimes, and punctuation was only commas and semicolons occasionally. And in addition, the verb goes always at the end of the phrase. So I had to read many sentences more than once. But I said, oh, that's beautiful. I jump in. And we started translating. And then we started finding problems with certain words, especially units of measurement for weight and distances. And I couldn't find much. So searching, we found and bought a 1850 German-English dictionary. That was our salvation. But going through all, I found later on that this book was based, this was published in 1922, but was based on a book written in 1790 by the superintendent, they name it rector in Germany, where he was living his last years. They wrote his biography, and I found it also a reprint. I had the opportunity to buy an original one, but my love for Hasenclever was not so big to pay $800 for a book. So I said, I stay with a photocopy. My wife, she's standing there in the back, she always says, you got obsessed. I believe any researcher, if he wants to do something, he has to get some obsession of what he is doing. And that's what I did. But before that, the book was published, his biography by this Rector Glauber, in a newspaper in 3 chapters in Silesia. Then later on, he published the book on the left, and including already letters that he was able to collect. When Adolf Hasenclever, 1922, published the second biography on the right, he added many more letters that he was able to find, and in addition also hundreds of footnotes, and that was fantastic, because those were able to help me and help Bert to identify and understand better his work and his personality. But I didn't want to just sitting there and not doing anything. At the West Milford, at the Longbourn Museum, we had a picture of Hasenclever here that was a copy of a photocopy of a little slide that was at Ringwood Manor. Says, who has the original? So I started doing my research. I wrote to the museum in the city where he was born, Remscheid. They answered me, we only have a photocopy or a photograph of the painting, no idea where it is. I wrote to a family member, no, we don't have it here. Then going through papers at Ringwood Manor, Mr. Ernie Krause was also at his time in the 30s, a little bit obsessed with Hasenclever and started doing also a lot of research. In his research, he found that there were Hasenclevers in Brazil and in Argentina. Many people say, oh, for sure they went after the war. No, they established steel and iron industries in Brazil, in Santa Catarina, and in Buenos Aires in Argentina In the 19th century and the 18th century, they established already ironworks there. And I found some letters that Ernie Krauss wrote. So I took the telephone directory from Buenos Aires. It's not like here you cannot get in the internet the telephone directory from the cities you live. You have to pay for that. No, it's public, the telephone book. And I found 15, 20 Hasenclevers from the 18th century to now. For sure, there were children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And the first one on the list was Rolf Hasenclever. Speaking Spanish, ta-ta-ta-ta. My name is Hans Niederstrasser, I'm doing this. Fantastic! Says, why? Because I just finished writing a history of the family, of my family. And he sent me then the book. But what he wrote about Pera was nothing, just 2 little pages. That's all what he has. He says, we don't know anything about that. If you help me, I help you too. And I told him, I'm looking for the original painting. I will search around. About 3 or 4 months later, he called me. I found the painting. It's with my uncle here in Buenos Aires. I called him, explained what I wanted, and he sent me a photograph of the original painting. Not only printed, but also in a CD so that we could use it. It says, it's yours, you can use it as you want. And that was my research in Argentina. It took me practically a year and was very happy to do it. This is a lunch with the Hasenclever family. Unfortunately, 3 of them already passed away. They are not anymore here with us. And only with Rolf I continue because he was much younger. They were already all between 80 and 90 years of age. So, as I mentioned to you, the main purpose of this is my research. What did I do? Then Hasenclever, when he returned to London, he was being sued by all the partners and all the people that they were in debt. The company was in debt with them. And he wrote the remarkable case of Pera Hasenclever as his defense in the British courts to defend his position. And the book was practically lost around the world. Inclusive when Adolf Hasenclever wrote the second book, printed 1922, that book, he couldn't find anything because it was just after the First War. In England, the relationships between Germany and England were horrible, and America practically the same. So he never found the book, and he mentioned it. He has just a summary of Pera Hasenclever wrote himself about the book. In 2000, somebody, Vince Struble, found a photocopy of the book. I don't know exactly where he found it. And the North Jersey Highlands Historical Society, they made a reprint. Unfortunately, this book, it's fantastic because it gives a lot of light of what happened. It's out of print. It still can be bought, sometimes at around $50 in internet and eBay or something. But in 2011, I went to the Library of Congress. It says, maybe they have a copy here. And what a surprise, they had the copy there. Introduced myself, who I was, and they gave me permission to handle the book because it's in a special books section of the library. And you see there the pictures that I have the book. I was able to handle it, to go through, and they gave me permission also to read. And the best thing is they have it already digitalized. So I have a digitalized copy. If somebody is interested, you give me a name, an email address, and I can send you a copy with a great pleasure. continuing my research. My wife and I, we love traveling. And we normally travel looking for historic sites. We love medieval history, medieval churches, medieval fortresses, medieval castles, whatever it has to do, we love it. And if they have an organ, much, because we love organ music. So we decided in 2013 to go to Remscheid and visit there. I sent some emails, and Mrs. Regina Halfinger, who is a Hasenclever by ancestry, the one is standing with me there by the light, the street Hasenclever. She said, more than welcome, come. I would love to meet you because I heard from my cousin in Argentina that you know much more than we know about our ancestor. Hasenclever got married with this lady from England and had only one daughter, Maria Sophie. And the painting on the right side, that's her. It's in the hands of Mrs. Harfinger in Remscheid when we visited her. She gave me permission to take a picture of it. And she married, and unfortunately no children, so there were no descendants from this line of the Hasenclever. With Sophia, that was the end. The house here in this portion was the original house of the Hasenclevers, where at that time all the Hasenclevers were born, because that was typical, the one born in the paternal house. They had to destroy it and turn it down because they were going to build a huge highway crossing Remscheid. Unfortunately, the house is lost. But something I had also a fantastic experience. The book I mentioned to you, the one from 1790, she had a copy. The one I didn't bought because it was $800. And I was able to have the book with me. I went through it. It was also a beautiful experience. Sorry. And I'm dedicating this to Miss Strobel because he was the one who found that photocopy that was used by the North Jersey Highlands Historical Society. Also in Remscheid, we went to visit the Werkzeug Museum, the tools museum that they had there, huge, and they had just a little thing about Hasenclever because they didn't know more about that. So again, I was able to speak with them, says, but we cannot help you. Why don't you go here to the next building? Those are the archives of the city. For sure, they will be able to help you. I went and spoke then with Viola, the lady that is standing there with me, and they had several things, but practically no information about Hasenclever in America. She showed me various books. One was the Ancestors book with all the history of the family, and one was photographs of a sculpture that nobody knows what it is, and a design that was going to be used to print some postage. I'm still in contact with them and still interchanging, and probability that I will going back to Germany and visit them again to get more information about the family itself and to provide them what I have found. From there, after visiting some relatives in Germany, we said, let's go to Kamienna Gora, that was Landesgut at the time of Hasenclever, and that was an odyssey. We took the train in Dresden. The moment you cross the border, you have to change to a local train. At that time, you couldn't continue with the same train. And they had 3 stops in between. It was pouring. Yesterday was nothing compared with that, the way it was raining there. All the rivers were overflowed. So it was difficult to arrive. We arrived there at the station, and there were two young people who says, "Do you speak German, English?" And he says, "English a little." Okay, we are looking for the Kaiserhof Hotel. They still kept the name Kaiserhof from Germany, when it was part of Germany. We arrived there, very friendly people, and we established then, let's see what we can find. I had a description from one of the books that the tomb, or the mausoleum of Peter Hasenclever was in the church of Alle Heiligkeiten, Drei Heiligkeiten, the Dignate, and looking for the church, finally we found it. It was in the outside limits of the city. And we arrived and there was nothing. The cemetery was flat, 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 flat. When the Russians came in, anything that sounded German was totally destroyed. The church was not destroyed for one simple reason, because they used it as a warehouse. And many of the churches were used for warehousing for many years. Later on, Poland, let's go back, that church at the beginning was a Lutheran church. Then when the Poland took over, it became a Catholic church. But they were so nice, they're friendly, and they explained us, no, everything disappeared. We don't have anything. But we had a picture of the mausoleum. And you see in the back some rocks and the slope of a hill. So searching for the rocks and comparing, etc., trees for sure. In 250 years, there have been big changes in the trees. But I believe that I am standing exactly where the mausoleum was. Unfortunately, flat. There was no one grave left over. Everything was destroyed. Kamienna and Orlandeshout in his time, still today, was famous for the linen industry. And this is a stained glass window at the township hall with a merchant buying and selling linen. Could be Hasenclever, who knows? Then we went to the local museum. Another surprise. We arrived, and the lady at the counter says, no German or English. Wait. And somebody came and introduced himself with German, poor German, but we were able to understand each other. We made friendship and we continued doing communication, both of us. And I explained him what it was. He was really impressed of what that says. I want to show you something. He took us through several rooms. I would say 70% dedicated maybe to the linen industry and to the history of the city. The rest was about the neighborhood. But in one of the rooms, there was a painting. That's this, the one that is in the middle, of Peter Hasenclever. The painting is about 3 by 6 feet. And unfortunately, it's only with some dates, but nothing about who was the painter. And it was originally kept in the basement of the church during the war to protect it. Later on, it came to the museum. There was also an engraving here of the city, and if you look here, it says Hasenclever's house and garden, number 12, and 13, the bleacherei, where they were bleaching. He was living outside of the city itself, of the walls of the city. That's where Hasenclever was living. They have all this. This engraving is here below that. But what is interesting in this painting is the map that he has in his hands. It says America. He always wanted to come back to America, but he said, I am too old now. And supposedly it's a letter that I'm looking for, that Benjamin Franklin invited him to come back, says, all what they took you away, you are going to get it back, come and work and do industry. He was really in favor of the colonists, never with the England itself, with the government. And on the right side, you see weaving bench, making linen. Still today, is one of the big businesses there. Walking through Landesgut one day, coming back from the museum, I saw the house on the right, bottom right. I said to my wife, I have seen this house. I went back to the hotel, opened my computer, and I found the picture that is just above in black and white, taken from one of the books of the Hasenclever family. That house still exists. You can check it. It's exactly the same house. That was a nice surprise. The building on the left here, that was the gymnasium. It's what here in America would be the high school. And in gymnasium, it's not only type of high school here, they have also what they teach apprentices to learn different type of works, because in order to work as a butcher, to work as a miner, etc., you have to learn the profession. It's not that you just come in and start working. Continuing my research, I had good relationships with the people at Ringwood Manor. So, talking to the people at Ringwood Manor, they says, oh, we have all documents for the Hasenclever time. Like this one, it's a complete charter signed after he got the first time in trouble with his partners in England. Because he lost everything. He had to pay all what they robbed him, because he was robbed by the partners. But he paid everything, every penny. And they wrote a new charter, a new contract. That contract, a copy of that contract, is at Ringwood Manor. It was in very, I wouldn't say bad shape. It was depending on the conditions of time. So it's difficult to handle, difficult to work. So I made an offer to Ringwood Manor that I was going to donate a certain quantity of money if somebody comes with a 50% of that money in addition to cover 100%, and send all the documents that they have to a specialist in Boston to protect all the documents, restore them, keep them as has to be kept, and scan them. They have huge scanners, so they could scan everything. Now, I started going through those documents, reading. I still have a lot to do. Some of them are already transcribed, others still will need more time. This is very interesting because in addition has different signatures, like David Green from England, he was one of the secretaries, General Jackson, Forrest was another one of the partners, and also at the end, in the seventh column, is the signature of Peter Hasenclever. Between those papers also was this, that was when the company was being sued by people in America. That has been transcribed 100%, but as I said, I couldn't handle the original documents. I didn't want to run the risk to damage them. And I found also an invoice. And you see the signature of Hasenclever at the bottom, and that's the one I used in my first slide as with his signature. I got permission from Ringwood Manor to use it. And on the right is one of the patents that he bought the territories and land in the Mohawk River and the German Flats for establishing hemp and mother plantations. I'm still, that would be one of my immediate research would be go to Albany. There is a record there. I know that exists because I have seen that it exists. It's the sale of a property of land sold by the Indians to Hasenclever and partners from the area. And it includes the signature of 20 Indian chiefs. I just say, just to look at that document should be fantastic. Also, another gentleman from New Jersey, Albert Heusser, he was German, and he was in touch with Adolf Hasenclever, the one who prepared the edition of the 1922 biography. He was in touch with him because they were looking for letters to be included in the future second edition of the biography. But the people who had those letters from Hasenclever or to Hasenclever, they just wanted millions, not millions, but too much money to pay for them. So at the end they desist and says, we will not go with them, but this was our communication. And I learned also some things from there that helped me to understand what it was Hasenclever's business. 7 years, and that's interesting, several years after Hasenclever passed away, I found that Mr. John Quincy Adams went to Silesia, and he wrote a whole book with all his memories of that trip. And in one section of the book is what you can read there. So he was still recognized in America that it was important, all the work that he did here. And they wanted, that's maybe the reason that also Benjamin Franklin wanted him to come back. But in one of, if you can read also later on, it's that he says, why shall I leave a place where I can live easy, simple, and rest? And so he says, I'm not coming back. Now, last but not least, last year, I was able to publish the book, the translation of the book. It took us many years to do it. First, because we didn't have the time. We worked only, Bert Proll and myself, we work on Saturdays, 2, 3, 4 hours. Then he moved to North Carolina when he retired from Ringwood Manor. And we continued there by correspondence, by telephone, by email, with the translation. Then for 2 years he got very, very sick. He couldn't continue working with me, and then he had an accident, fell and broke his neck, and he was in the hospital for several months. And one day his son decided that in Charlotte, yes, North Carolina, he was not receiving the proper treatment. Says, with permission of the doctors, we will transfer him to New Jersey. He arrived in New Jersey and he passed away. At that moment, I said, now I have to publish the book in his honor. I have to publish the book. So the first thing that I did, I called Anne, his wife, and said, Anne, I would like to know, because you know that it was a joint venture, and we came to the agreement that when we sell the book, we will not get 1 penny from it. Everything after paying the printer, it's going to be used as a donation for the education committee of the Long Pond Iron Works here in town. Says, let's see what she answers, I said. Suddenly she says, Hans, it's your book. Whatever you do is correct. Do it. I published the book. So I started looking for publisher. I went to try to get people at Rutgers University Press, because on the many other things that Hasenclever did, he was one of the initiators of the Chamber of Commerce of New York City. He was also one of the ones who signed the charter of the foundation of Queens College, today Rutgers College. I have a copy of that document. And when I got the answer from Rutgers University Press, I had to write practically a book to justify the printing of the book. And I understand it was never going to be a book that will be sold by the millions and will make much money. So I started looking for local people, and the North Jersey Highlands Historical Society offered me to pay for the printing of the book. So in November, we were able to launch the book. Unfortunately, Bert never saw the book, but I have the honor and the proud that I brought the book the day it came out from the printer. I went to his grave in St. Elizabeth Chapel in Tuxedo. I bought the book on his grave, says, here it is. Researchers, sources, many, plenty, too much. Another book that I got in Germany. Binders like this, I have 3 binders with more information about him. This one special has, from all the footnotes that he mentions, if he mentions a document, I look for the document, found it on the internet, copied, and it's here. So you will see that's a lot of books that I used and tried to get information, and also publications. Here's the John Quincy Adams, then Henry Holmes, and Notice on Pesa Hasenclever, that some of them, they are misleading because they didn't have the complete information. And so it goes on and on and on. But my research will continue. I will continue sorting all the documents I have found. I am possible, depends also if we can do it, a next back trip to Germany and Poland. I would love to go again. Trips to Albany, to New York City also, and to Trenton. Why New York City and Trenton? I checked at the American Iron Company at the Public Library in New York. They say it this way: there are 3 feet of boxes with documents from the American Iron Company. So, see, what the heck is in those boxes? I would like to see it. And in Trenton, I am looking a very special document. When he has time having trouble, and the partners want to put him in jail, Governor William Franklin, the son of Benjamin Franklin, who was the governor of New Jersey, ordered a complete audit of all what Hasenclever did. We have a description of what he said because it's in the Hasenclever book wrote, but we have never seen the original one. Maybe I find it there in Trenton or at the Public Library or in Albany, because there were 3 copies made. One for William Franklin, one for the governor of New York, and one for the King of England, George III. You maybe have asked why Charlottenburg, the furnace here. At that time, the Queen of England was Charlotte, the spouse of George III. And she was German, from Hanover. And she got very much interested in Hasenclever at her time and helped him a little bit trying to push his businesses. So occasionally he got also a little help. And I thank you very much. And I would like also to invite you, the Friends of the Longpoint Iron Works as an organization will be celebrating 40 years in October. And we are planning a whole day of seminar or workshops about iron. We are going to have blacksmiths, we are going to have people working, founders, etc. And hope that we can do something there and show more about local history. And today I am introducing a little motto that I designed myself together with Nathan, that when Hasenclever came, there were only here farmers, different type of farmers, not many. And when Hasenclever came and brought the 500 Germans, colliers, iron workers, iron miners, woodcutters, iron workers itself directly, he established where is Longpoint today, was later the first Hewitt, a self-sufficient community. So, and it was an industrial community, so we can practically consider that was the crucible, the cradle of West Milford. That's where West Milford was founded in the 1790s. Thank you very much.